What is up, guys? Welcome to our review for Legends of Tomorrow Season 3 Episode 16, titled Necromancing the Stone. Just out the gate, this was one of the best episodes of the series, probably the best of the season, and also one of the best of the series. It was just a great episode. It dealt with Sarah being taken over by Mullis using the death totem. She was lured in by her past self from when she got killed, and thinking about that, I think it would be really cool if we saw multiple versions of that Sarah Lance when she died, because she's died a lot of times. She's seemingly died like 6 or 7 times, but she's actually physically died twice. Once on Arrow and then once on Legends of Tomorrow. So I think it would have been cool if we saw multiple versions of that character. But we saw the one from Arrow Season 3 Episode 1 when she was killed by Thea, and that was a cool throwback because we saw her in the canary suit. But she was, and then because of that, she was taken over by Mellis using the death totem. And she was actually pretty scary, with all the legends just being beaten up by her or by Mullis, and she was in the background trying to fight back, and at times being kind of persuaded to not fight back, which I think was a great subplot within this Sarah being taken over by Mullis whole thing. Her in Mullis' dimension with Nora Dark and being persuaded to go to the dark side, but then not. I thought that was a great subplot. And just on the Wave Rider, she was a really scary character because all the legends are going up to her one at a time for some reason, which is one of the minor things I didn't really like about this episode, is that they split up for some reason. They were going out one at a time. It bothered me a little bit, but that's a minor complaint. There are like 1 or 2 minor complaints in this episode, and the rest is just really great. It was a great episode. And also the way they handled each one going out one at a time and being taken out by Sarah, each one it did serve to make for a pretty scary episode in that sense. So I guess it's that, which is why it's a minor complaint more than a major complaint, because it did actually serve to better the episode despite it not making much sense. But like I said, Sarah being in this state was handled really well. I really liked it, and I was hoping we'd see her we see this for more than one episode, but we didn't get it, which is slightly disappointing, but seeing that for one episode at all is good. Also, I really hope that it comes back in a way that Sarah controls it. Like, she goes back to being in this state in the season finale or something and uses that to take out Mullis. But this time, she can control it. That would be a really cool arc. I think they should have done this a little earlier in the season so that she can have this arc for when she's taken over by Mullis with the Death Totem, but then overcomes that and becomes a wielder of the Death Totem. Also, all the fight scenes with Sarah in them fighting the legends were really great for Legends of Tomorrow. Like, if it was on Arrow, it would be pretty good, but not great or anything, because Arrow is the show that does the fight scenes. No other show does it like Arrow does, and because of that, Arrow's gotten really good at it. But for Legends of Tomorrow, these fight scenes with Sarah fighting the legends were actually really exciting and fast-paced and well choreographed, so I really liked it. Speaking of the legends, we saw each one of them except for, I think, Amaya, Ray. Every single one of them saw a loved one or a person from their past, and each one of those scenes were so great. They were really well acted and emotional, especially the one between Wally and Jesse. I thought that Wally's actor, Kenan Lonsdale, did an amazing job in that scene. I've never seen him this good in anything, and I think that stems from him being on a more fitting show for the character. I think he just fits better, so he's more comfortable, so he's a much better actor. And even though I was expecting to see Jessie in character in this episode, I was saying in my trailer breakdown that it wouldn't make sense for her to be in the episode. It just doesn't make any sense in terms of, like, why is she here, where does she come from, and where do you put her? But this being, like, she's not actually here, it's just a ghost for Wally with the Death Totem. That's a much better alternative just because it makes more sense, and it served to give us a great scene and probably the best acted scene from Kenan Lonsdale in the Arrowverse ever, as far as I can remember. I loved that scene. Honestly, probably my favorite scene from the episode. But there were also other great scenes, like Nate seeing his grandfather. It was nice seeing Commander Steele back from... He died in last season, and he was in the Justice Society. It is nice seeing him back. I actually hope to see the Justice Society back in general, but I don't think that's ever going to happen at this point. It might be like a new Justice Society, which I haven't made a video about. And just like the one between Jesse and Wally, this one between Nate and his grandfather was a really well acted and emotional scene between both actors. And another thing that comes from that is that Nate was going to get the Earth Totem, which I predicted that he will be using the Earth Totem this season, and that Mick will be using the Fire Totem, which I will be talking about in a minute because he does use it in this episode, which means that I think every single totem is being used up, and the only legends who don't have totems are Ray and Kid Flash, but they're probably never going to get one unless one of them gets the Water Totem instead of Kawaze having the Water Totem. And then there was the scene between Zari and her little brother, who was, I think, killed by Argus a little earlier than 2042, which is when Zari lived and which is when the Legends picked her up from. What's crazy about that is, first of all, it was another well-acted and emotional scene from this concept. That's the third one so far. First was Wally and Jesse, second was Nate and his grandfather, and now Zari and her little brother. What's crazy about this is that her brother has not died yet. In fact, definitely has not been born yet. Probably not born until 2030 something, 35 or 6. So the fact that he's here is a little crazy. It seems like death just doesn't have a concept of time in this universe, or maybe it just goes by the person there. It's manipulating his mind because Zari is from the future. But the fact that Sarah was able to bring back her little brother when he hasn't even been born yet, let alone died, is a little crazy. But it was a well-acted emotional scene, so that doesn't really matter. They don't need to explain it. Just explaining it, just like I said, by the fact that it goes by the person is manipulating his mind and not by reality. But then Constantine has his own version of this. He doesn't see anybody, but he hears Astra, the little girl he damned to hell right before his season started, back in like 2014, I think. But we never actually saw that. I think we saw it in like flashbacks or something, but we never saw it on screen. This was like a big thing for his season. It's a big thing in the comics. So seeing Astra again in this way, in this form, in this concept of characters seeing dead loved ones from their past, or just people from their past, like Wally sees Jesse, it's a really emotional and well-acted scene. Again, another one. That's, I think, 4 at this point. And then there's the one between Sarah and her past self, which I already talked about in this video. But then there's the one between Sarah, and then she sees a vision of the past. It's not a vision, really. She just sees the past when she was an assassin and she kills this guy, and then this guy's daughter sees him die. That's something that we've never seen before, ever. We've never seen her as an assassin, which is something, like, I just think about that. It's crazy. We've never actually seen her before on Arrow or on Legends as an assassin. We've never seen the years between when she got separated from Oliver and when she got reunited with Oliver in Season 2. In those years, she became an assassin, and she was an assassin. The fact we've never seen that before is a little crazy, but we're seeing it here, and it's pretty cool. So I just talked about Constantine seeing Astra, or hearing Astra, rather, and I realized that I didn't actually talk about him returning to the show for another episode, and I'll just talk about him here. So he's back. Constantine has returned for one episode. I think it's going to be this episode, and then the season finale where he's going to return again. So that's 2 more episodes that he's not in. That's crazy. There are only 3 more episodes to the season, but then he's going to be a series regular in Season 4, so he's going to be back a lot more, and he was great in this episode. He explained why the Death Totem was lost to the tribes of Zambezi and why Vixen didn't know about it. He explained, and which is something that I thought should have been explained in the previous episode, but I was thinking, like, going to this episode thinking, why didn't they explain why why does Vixen not know about the Death Totem? But then like 10 or 11 minutes later, Constantine explains it, and I really like it. It turns out the Death Totem, the wielder of the Death Totem, or the village that had the wielder of the Death Totem, sided with the Mullis, which is a thing that I really am, like, I heard that and I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I actually like that, and I like that explanation. And Constantine being back is really cool, and he's going to be back a lot more, so I'm looking forward to seeing him again. I also mentioned that Mick used the Fire Totem in this episode, and he used the Fire Totem in this episode, which is really fitting for the character. I was half expecting, before the synopsis for the next episode was revealed, which says that he has a totem, I was expecting for Jefferson Jackson to use the totem in the season finale, but that's not going to happen because Mick is using it instead, which is very, very fitting. He's had powers in the past, in the comics, like in the New 52, right away he had powers, and then later he lost the powers and he got a heat gun again. I'm pretty sure about that, which is why seeing Mick with powers is not all that far-fetched, and I think they can actually keep this totem on him for the rest of the series, that I would really not mind that, because seeing him with just a gun, I think, can like just anybody do that? Like anybody who is not a criminal, a crazy rogue criminal, can do that. But now with the fire totem, I think the fire totem can only be used by him at the moment, so that just makes him, it validates him as a character on the show a lot more, and it makes him a lot cooler, because shooting fire out of your hands is a lot more interesting in a storytelling point of view. Not a storytelling, but just seeing it on a TV show. Just shooting it out of his hands is a lot more interesting than shooting it out of a gun. You could also do a lot more with that, and they did a pretty good amount with it in this episode. So I really liked Mick using the fire totem in this episode, and I hope it sticks around for the entirety of the series, along with the air totem and the spirit totem, which Vixen uses. I mean, she doesn't use it in this episode because she doesn't have it. The Darks have it, but she will use it again. The totems that will probably not stick around are the water, earth, and also the death totem. Either they will be locked away, or they will be destroyed, or something like that. I think they might be destroyed, and then the other three, the fire, the spirit, and the air, will stick around with the legends. I think that's possible. I think if they were going to give like each totem to a character, they would give the death totem to Sarah, and then the water totem stays with Kawase, and the earth totem, I don't know what to do with the earth totem, because you could say they give it to Citizen Steel, but he already has powers. He doesn't need it, even though he barely uses his powers because of CGI and costs. He doesn't really need it. So the earth totem, I don't know what to do with, but every other totem has a character that they can go to, so they can stick around to the next season and to the rest of the show. Just the totems that I think should definitely stick around are the spirit, air, and fire totems. The only thing I didn't like about this episode was everything involving Ava. I didn't like, she kind of pissed me off in this episode. I didn't like that whole storyline of her being jealous of Constantine, and I thought that was stupid and tacked on. I also didn't like just the storyline of her and Sarah and all that drama of them breaking up. I do like the fact that they broke up, because they're not a good couple, but the way it was handled in this episode, it just didn't feel like it fit with the tone of the episode and everything else in the with everything else in the episode being so good, and then this drama kind of boggling it down, like bringing it down a little bit. Just everything about Ava in this episode I did not like. She kind of pissed me off as well. Like when Constantine was holding out his hand before this ritual, and she's like, "Are you kidding me?" That just really pisses me off. I don't like it when characters are like that. But that's the only thing I didn't like about this episode. It's probably the only thing keeping it from being a perfect episode, like probably one of the best of the show ever. It is still one of the best of the show ever, but it could have been the best if not for that thing with Ava, which is why I'll give this episode a 9.9 out of 10. I loved this episode. I loved everything about it except for the whole thing with Ava, and that only brought it down by 0.1 of a point. So you can tell that it's not a huge deal. And 9.9 is an amazing score, so it's still a great episode. But let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and if you would like, follow me on Twitter, the link is in the description, or turn on the notification, because YouTube is not working at the moment in terms of the subscription box. But thanks for watching.